Damien, are you worried about Jesse testifying against you? In looking at young people involved in the occult, do you see any particular type of dress?
I have personally observed people wearing black fingernails, having their hair painted black, wearing black T-shirts. Sometimes they will tattoo themselves.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not there are occult overtones or evidence of occult involvement in these particular murders?
Well, the date being close to Beltane, a holiday, May 1st. Also, the day before that is Walpurgisnacht. Then you go into the fact that some groups, occult groups, or will use a full moon. In several occult books, they will talk about the life force of the blood. Usually the younger the individual, the more pure it is, the more power or the force it has. A lot of times they will take blood and store it for other services and other use, as well as consume it or bathe in it.
Now, the items drawn on the front, what is that?
That is a pentagram. That happens to be a Wiccan or white witchcraft pentagram.
All right. Now, if you would open the book to the front page.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, explain what that is.
That's confusion to me.
All right.
And the reason why we got a white witchcraft Wiccan pentagram, then we have upside down crosses, which comes from another type of occultism.
What type of occultism do the upside down crosses?
That's black witchcraft.
Is it Wicca, Satanism, or both?
Both.
Okay. And did you notice anything in particular about the book?
There's a chapter in here called Rise of the Devil, and it is underlined in red, and there's a couple sentences in there reference to blood and its life force.
How were you accepted into enrollment at Columbia Pacific University?
I had to fill out a considerable series of papers, including all my education, background, experience.
Did you ever fill out a little flyer like this
No, sir.
that says, call toll-free for information on how to become a doctor? This is a mail-order college, isn't it? What classes did you take between 1980 and 1982 to obtain your master's degree? What classes?
I testified.
I'm asking what classes did you take?
I told you, I answered that before, none.
You did not take any classes between 1982 and 1984 when you became a PhD. What classes did you take?
None.
None. Okay. Is it your opinion, and do you want to tell this jury that these crimes were motivated by occult beliefs?
Yes.
We're not trash, by no means. My son was born in West Memphis. He was raised in West Memphis. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why people has got this bad image of it. So what if he wore a black trench coat? He's not the only one that does. You know, so what if he wore black t-shirts, black pants? Johnny Cash wears black, doesn't he?
Well, I wear black. Michelle wears black. Dominique wears black. We're all just partial to black, I guess.
I like black myself. And I'm by no means no devil worshiper, nor is he.
He was going to school. He wanted to go to school to be a priest. He was faithful in the church. And he looked into a little bit of Wicca, but he never went to it. And I think if people looked into what Wicca is, they would understand it a little better. The only thing Wiccans do is worship the earth.
People probably think that I'm in Satanism because usually what people don't understand, they try to destroy or ridicule it, try to make it look bad or wrong. West Memphis is pretty much like second Salem. Because everything that happens there, every crime, no matter what it is, it's blamed on Satanism.
He's been previously sworn.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Please state your name for the court.
Damian Wayne Eccles.
Why did you change your name?
I was very involved in the Catholic Church, and we were going over different names of the saints. St. Michael's was where I went to church at. And we heard about this guy from the Hawaiian Islands, Father Damien, that took care of lepers until he finally caught the disease himself and died.
Was that the reason you chose Damien as your first name?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did the choosing of the name Damien have anything to do with any type of horror movies, Satanism, cultism, any of that nature?
Nothing whatsoever.
Okay. All right. After the time period that you were really into the Catholic religion, did you start focusing in another particular religion?
Wicca.
Wicca. All right. Could you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what some principles about the Wicca religion?
It acknowledges a goddess in a higher regard as a god, because people have always said we're all God's children and men cannot have children. It's basically like a close involvement with nature.
Is there a difference between the Wicca religion and witchcraft?
Wicca is also called witchcraft. The word Wicca was bastardized. It originally meant wise one.
Did the fact that you like to wear black all the time, were you different in other ways as well?
Yes, I've never had a lot of the same interests that other people have, like sports, things like that. I've never been into anything like that.
And did it help you deal with other people to have people kind of standoffish and sort of back away from you?
Yeah, it was like a defense mechanism. It would make people think like, well, he's weird, I'm not going to go around him, so it kept people away.
The state had introduced the book Never on a Broomstick. Are you familiar with that particular book?
Yes, I am.
All right. Where did you get that book, Damien?
At the library in Crittenden County. All the books that they were getting tired of or had for a long time, I guess, they all had them sitting on a rack out front that they were selling for 10 cents each, so I got it.
All right. Did you underline any of those portions in the book?
No, that was done when I got it. I think it was because somebody had a report to do or something, because all during the book there's like little notes, certain dates and stuff, like from the 1600s in the outside margin.
So was that book kind of like a history of witchcraft and how it's developed over the ages?
Yes.
Okay. So are you familiar with the contents of that notebook?
Yes, I am.
I noticed on the inside with the front cover there appears to be a couple of quotes there. Can you read each of those to the jury and then tell them where that came from?
Life is but a walking shadow. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That's from A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. Pure black, looking clear, my work is soon done here. Try getting back from me that which used to be. That is off a Metallica tape called Injustice for All. It talks about how warped the court systems are, and stuff like that.
On May the 5th, did you kill Michael Moore?
No, I did not.
On May the 5th, did you kill Stevie Branch?
No, I did not.
On May the 5th, did you kill Chris Byers?
No, I did not.
Have you ever participated in any type of human sacrifice?
No, I have not.
19-year-old Damien Echols admits he stands out in a crowd. He says he loves heavy metal music, likes sure, practices the Wicca religion. 3, 2, 1. 19-year-old Damien Echols says he's 3, 2, 1. 19-year-old Damien Echols admits he stands out in a crowd. He says he likes to wear black most of the time, practices the Wicca religion, and loves heavy metal music, but he says he's definitely not a killer.
I believe they did it, and if they were to be set free on the street, then they would have to look behind their back, watch behind their back to see if Pam Hobbs wasn't following them, because I'm just saying this as a human, you know, I believe I'd try to kill them too, if they ever walked the street and I'm still alive. I believe I'd be stalking them to do to them, probably shoot them, then cut them up.
When I was down to the courtroom and Damien walked past me, I wanted to just go over there and take my hand and just claw down his face. Inflict any kind of pain that I could inflict on him.
I know eventually we're going to have to forgive him. I know that, and I understand that. But when it happens in your home and you watch your wife lose her mind, you know, whatever happened to her, your home is tore apart, busted up, I don't feel it's fair
right now for someone to ask me to forgive the ones that caused it.
It'd take some time, a long time, before I could forgive them.
You say that it's going to take time. We don't know how much time we got. Pam, we wouldn't be able to see Stevie again. We have to forgive in our heart because the Lord forgave us. He forgave us. He shedded his blood for us. He shedded his blood for them. And he just asked us to have a forgiving spirit. And I refuse to serve sin and Satan, because I'm going to see Stevie again. I'm going to be with Stevie again. I'm going to be with my mother again. I'm going to be with her mother, your grandmother, both of them. I'm going to be with all of my loved ones that have passed on and went to heaven.
If you could speak to the families of these kids who think you did it, what would you say to them?
Jason was my best friend. We did about everything together. It was kind of like we even lived together most of the time. Stayed at each other's houses, wore each other's clothes. It was more like we were brothers. We used to go out and snake hunt all the time. Snakes and music were like about our whole life, really. We were like all the time looking for new groups that we would like or something. Our favorite kinds of music were like Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, U2. We did just about everything together.
I want to draw your attention back to August of last year. Were you in the Craighead County Juvenile Detention Facility?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and what were you in there for at the time?
Burglary.
Okay. And when you were there, was there a Jason Baldwin in the juvenile detention facility at the same time?
Yes.
Now, while you were in contact with this Jason Baldwin, was there anything mentioned about his involvement in the murders of the 3 8-year-olds?
Yes. Well, we was sitting there playing spades, and I wanted to get to know everybody off in there. I don't know what you call it, but I just wanted to get to know him. And I just straight out asked him if he did it, and he denied it the first time.
Okay. Did you have an occasion again while you were in the detention facility to ask him, was he involved in the murders of the 3 8-year-olds?
Yes. I think it was like the next day. I believe it was the next day.
And can you tell us what the scenario, what was going on, what was happening at the time that occurred?
Well, me and Jason Baldwin were scraping up the cards, going to ourselves for lunch. I said, just between me and you, I won't say a word. Did you do it? He said yes, and he went into detail about it.
You said he went into more detail. What did he tell you?
He told me how he dismembered the kid, or I don't know exactly how many kids. He just said he dismembered them. He sucked the blood from the penis and the scrotum and put the balls in his mouth.
Now, Michael, when was it that you came forward with this information?
I'm not really sure. I believe it was like a couple months later.
What caused you to come forward at that point in time? Why did Michael Carson no longer want to stay uninvolved? Why did you come forward in February this year?
Because I saw the family on TV and saw how broken-hearted they were about their children being missing, and I got a soft heart. I couldn't take it.
Now, he tells you this, and then you're silent from August until February. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then the second conversation you've ever had with this young man in his entire life, he tells you all this stuff.
Yes, sir.
After he's had one conversation with you.
Yes, sir.
One day when I was up here in Jonesboro working, and phone rings, and secretary says, "You won't know who he is, but he needs to talk to you." I pick up the phone. He says, "I'm Danny Williams. I'm embarrassed to tell you what I need to tell you." He said, "But I work with the juvenile department here, and I do drug and alcohol counseling. And there's a guy named Michael Carson who's going to testify that Jason confessed to him in the jail, and I know he's lying." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well," he said, "several months ago, Michael Carson was one of the kids that I work with. And he and I had a conversation where I told him that this Jason Baldwin had been accused of killing 3 boys and sexually mutilating them. And basically, he gave Michael Carson the details that he testified to at the trial. At the time, Carson says nothing. And then Carson later tells him, he said, "Hey, by the way, Danny, I've telling the police that, Jason confessed to me." And so he calls me up and said, "Hey, no. I said, "This kid's a liar. He's no good. I know he's lying. And the only reason he's got this information is because I gave it to him."
The counselor of this kid called the prosecution and told them what a liar he was, and the prosecution still used the kid.
That's right.
And now they're trying to keep out the fact, the background of the kid.
Obviously, we want to get that information out, but the judge acts like he may not let us use him at all.
We should absolutely be able to let that jury know that he is LSD dependent, because it does affect his ability to recall.
The judge takes all that away from us, then the kid looks pretty believable.
Not only are they keeping out the background of the kid when he testifies so the jury doesn't have all the eggs, but now they're keeping out the counselor who even knows about this kid, who told him the story in the first place prior to him ever telling the police. All that goes to the credibility.
I think that would have shown the jury that he didn't have quite that kind heart, that soft heart that he tried to tell.
That's right.
Detective Allen, I want to direct your attention to November the 17th, 1993. Were you asked to make contact with some property owners at Lakeshore Trailer Park and also get with the Arkansas State Police dive team?
Yes, sir, I was.
And after a period of time of searching, do you know whether any items were recovered?
Yes, sir.
Mark for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 77 and ask if you can identify that.
Yes, I can identify this by my 11/17 of 93 M. Allen that I put here.
Where did you get the knife?
I got this knife from a diver with the state police.
How long did this search take place?
How long?
Yes, sir.
From memory, I'm thinking maybe 10:30 a.m. by the time they got suited up and started to look.
And you quit it when?
They located the knife at 11:35 a.m.
So I had
or 11:30, 11:35.
about an hour.
About an hour and a half. Yeah.
Are you telling this jury that this knife is the murder weapon? Or is that what you're telling this jury?
No, sir, I'm not telling the jury that.
Okay, now that we got that. What day were these individuals charged? What day did you all charge Damian Echols for this crime? Was it June the 3rd?
Yes, sir.
And what day was it that you were out there searching this lake?
This was on 11/17 of 93.
November 17 of 1993.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
As long as they get an arrest, then I'm here. The damn system stinks. They're playing with our lives, and there's nothing right about it.
It's kind of like the Nazis, you know, they can just take somebody's word and come in your house and take you away. And basically that's what they did because of what Jesse told them, even though it had all those inconsistencies in it.
If we'd had money, you think these three boys would have been picked up? They found people that they knew that didn't have money. Some boys had been in a little bit of trouble. They thought we didn't care. But they were wrong. They were bad wrong.
I don't believe that children could be that cold-blooded. That's what happened to those boys.
State's Exhibit 67A shows the hog-tying fashion. The hands were hog-tied to the feet behind the back, and this is a photograph showing that, the shoelaces. And that injury, you see, is typical of a belt injury. You know, the belt has a little buckle, and that's what the buckle, that's that little one that goes back and forth to left and right. That's the base of the latch. Here, this red area here, this is the shaft of the penis. And here is where the scrotal sac and testes should be, and they're missing. So what we have is that the skin overlying the penis, the head of the penis, has been carved off. It's gone. It's not there.
In layman's language that I understand, with respect, his penis has not been cut off, has it?
No, the skin has been taken off the penis.
And basically it would take some skill and precision to do that, wouldn't it?
I would think so.
Okay. If this was to be done, this dissection where the skin is cut off, that would take a very sharp instrument, would it not?
I think it would.
Okay. Such as a razor.
Or a sharp knife.
Or a very sharp knife. Doctor, if you were to do this with the skill and the precision and knowledge that you take, how long would it take you to do that?
It would take me some time.
It'd take you longer than 5 to 10 minutes.
I would think so.
And that's in your lab.
I would think so.
With a scalpel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, doctor, if we added to the equation that you were in the dark, could you do this in the dark? You, doctor, could you do it in the dark?
It would be difficult.
Could you do this in the water? You, doctor, could you do this in the water?
I think it would be very difficult to do.
If you were doing it in the dark, in the water, with mosquitoes all around you, would that make it even much more difficult?
I would think so.
It would take you, it would be a very tedious task for you, a skilled pathologist.
It would.
Now, isn't it true, doctor, that people have about 5 pints of blood?
A little more than that, yes.
Okay. Now, if I poured out 5 pints of blood out here on the floor, you'd make a big mess with it.
Yes.
And it would be almost impossible to clean it.
Well, you could do it, but not very easily.
Very, very difficult, wouldn't it?
It's not easy to clean blood.
Does blood soak into the ground?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Doctor, with this homicide we're talking about here today, would you agree with me that this could have happened in one of 3 ways? These injuries could have happened in the water. These injuries could have happened on the bank there by the side of the ditch, or it could have happened somewhere else. Would you agree with me those are the 3 possibilities of how this could have happened?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with your knowledge of the amount of blood that was lost from not only Chris Byers, but these other boys who have some pretty, they're going to bleed as well, won't they?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not you could clean up that amount of blood at a scene in the dark? Do you have an opinion as to that?
I think it would be quite difficult to do, to have injuries of this nature without having any blood. I mean, that's, I would question that about the blood.
Okay.
Unless it happened in the water or it happened some other place.
Okay. And you again, doctor, stated that you couldn't do this in the water.
Personally, I don't think I could.
I don't get off on hurting people or inflicting pain on the rest of the human race or just causing destruction for the purpose of destruction. I've probably been in 1 or 2 fights my entire life. And especially a child, because they didn't do anything to deserve what they got. And I believe whatever you do to someone else, whether it's good or bad, is eventually going to come back around to you. Even the person who did this, if they're not caught and punished, then something will happen in their life where they will be punished.
People kept telling me not to go out with him. He was like some kind of devil worshiper and stuff, and I met him in Walmart. And he followed me around like a puppy dog. And we started talking, you know, he was real sweet. Not like everybody else was making him out to be. That night we started going out, and it was like a month. And he called me up on the telephone at my dad's girlfriend's house. And he goes, "Will you marry me?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Will you marry me?" I said, "Can you repeat that one more time?" And he goes, "Will you marry me?" And I said, "Yeah." When I got pregnant, I had this big picture painted in my mind that, you know, Damien's gonna be there, and I get to yell at him when I have the baby. And instead, I was yelling at her. I miss him so much. And he hasn't got to see the baby. They won't let him touch the baby. Oh, it makes me so pissed off.
I just felt different when he was born. It made me feel like, I guess, just real good inside. Just to think that I gave life to another human being. Something completely separate from me, but still part of me. I just hope that I'll be there when he grows up to watch him.
You're familiar with a fellow named Aleister Crowley?
I know who he is. I know who he is.
And he's a guy who kind of professes, he's a noted author in the field of satanic worship, right?
I know who he is, but I've never saw any of his books personally.
Not really much of a follower of his?
I would have read them if I would have saw them, but I just never.
But Aleister Crowley is a guy that, based on his writings, believes in human sacrifice, doesn't he?
He also believed he was God, though. So.
Okay. And he also had writings that indicated that children were the best type of human sacrifice, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But Aleister Crowley doesn't have any particular significance to you?
I know who he is. I've read a little bit about him, but I've never read anything by him.
Let me show you a copy of some documents. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
It was this paper I had on different alphabets for like translations where you could write things that nobody could read, and this was one of the forms.
Oh, okay. Well, where did you have that at? When did you do that, write those things out?
Sometime before I was arrested, I guess.
Okay. Are you sure that you hadn't done those since you were arrested while you've been staying in jail?
I don't know, I might have.
Well, whose names are written on that document?
Mine, Jason's, my son's, One that says Aleister Crowley and
Wait, who?
Aleister Crowley.
Now, this is a document that you've written while you've been waiting in jail for trial, right?
If you say so.
Well, you wrote it, correct? That's your writing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You recall when you wrote it?
Not really.
Well, what I'm going to ask you is that this Damien Seth Azariah Eccles, your son, he wasn't born until after you were placed in jail, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you got his name listed on this document, then this document had to be generated after he was born, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is something you've written since you've been sitting in here in jail waiting for trial.
Yes.
And what you were doing was writing out various names in different type alphabets, correct?
From the way it looks here, I was practicing, trying to memorize them.
And one of the names that you picked out to write about was this fellow named Aleister Crowley, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a total coincidence? You just pulled his name out of the air?
No, it's just the same book that I had with this, the different alphabets in it. It also had stuff about him in it.
Well, did you have the book out there at the time you were doing this?
This was just from what I remembered myself, where I was practicing, trying to memorize, get it all in my head perfectly.
So you were going over it, working on it in your head, and at that point in time, you write all this down from memory?
Mm-hmm.
The people that are listed on here, you've got your name on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Jason Baldwin, which is your best friend, right? And then you've got Damien Seth Azariah Eccles, that's your son?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then the only other name on this document besides yourself, your best friend, and your son is Aleister Crowley, correct?
Yes, sir.
I believe this witness is requested not to be photographed.
That's correct, Your Honor. Would you state your name for the jury?
Christy Van Bickle.
Okay. And do like you just did and speak up best you can, okay, Christy? Are you nervous?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Did you hear somebody say something about the murder of the three little boys?
Yes, sir. I heard Damien Eccles say that he killed the three boys.
Where were you? Was he saying that to you, or what were you doing?
I was walking by with my friend.
Christy, I'm Scott Davidson, and I've got a couple of questions to ask you too, okay?
Okay.
Okay. First of all, do you remember what day this was that you heard this?
No, sir.
That's the first time you'd ever seen him in your life?
Yes, sir.
What did he say before you say that he said he killed those three boys? What did he say before that?
I don't know.
What did he say after that?
I don't know.
And how close were you to him?
I wasn't close.
Did he scream it?
I don't know.
Did he yell it?
I don't know.
Are you next witness?
Call Jody Medford.
All right, again, this witness is requested not to be photographed.
Jody, I want to direct your attention to May of 1993, after the murders of the three little boys. Did you have an occasion to be at the softball field and hear a comment in regard to the murder?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell the jury first what you heard.
He said I killed the three little boys, and before I turn myself in, then I'm going to kill two more, and I already have one of them picked out.
You didn't recognize anybody else that was with him?
I saw Jason Baldwin there.
Had you heard people talking about Damien before this?
Yes, sir.
Do you think he was kind of weird or something?
Yes, sir, because he was dressed all in black and his hair was jet black and long and shaved on the side.
Margaret, 2 teenage girls took the stand this morning, and they said they heard Damien Echols confess to the murders of 3 8-year-old boys last May. One of the girls said she overheard Damien Echols say, "I killed the 3 boys, and I'm going to kill 2 more. I already have 1 picked out." Later in the afternoon, when the defense began presenting its witnesses, Damien Echols himself took the stand. He said he thought the girls were lying and that they were making up those statements. He also said he did not practice Satanism and denied any involvement in the murders of Chris Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch.
Were you working at Bojangles Restaurant on the evening of May 5th of 1993?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us what happened?
Well, it was about 9:30 at night. Found a black gentleman sitting in the women's restroom on the commode, and there was blood dripping off of his forearm. But he had mud on his feet, and he seemed to be disarrayed when I talked to him. I called the police then.
What happened then?
It was a female officer for the West Memphis Police Department, and she pulled on the light, and I saw her coming, so I went up to the front door. Well, she kept coming around. She went to the drive-through window.
So you did not go in the restaurant?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever find this bleeding black man?
No, sir, I did not.
Do you have a report that you made regarding this incident?
No, sir, I do not.
And you're out looking for some boys, and you're out in that area, and you hear about someone bleeding. Did anything go off in your mind thinking that something may be going on?
Okay, first of all, you got to understand it's a different area I went to. It was a different ward. I did not connect the two at all.
Well, Croman, it may have been outside your ward, but distance-wise between the area where you were looking and where this restaurant was, it's not a long distance, is it?
No, sir, it's really not.
Okay.
Did any other officer come out there that evening?
Not that evening.
Were you working on the day of May 6th of 1993?
Yes, sir. 2 detectives came out and they took a report as far as what I'd seen, description of the gentleman, and then they took blood scrapings off the wall.
All right, Detective Rich, what is the date that you sent the blood scrapings off to the crime lab to be analyzed?
They were never sent.
They were never sent?
That's correct.
All right, where are the blood samples at this time?
I don't know, sir. They're lost.
They're lost?
Yes, sir, that's my mistake. I lost a piece of evidence.
Most of the time he came up with the stupid ideas. I guess I influenced him about as much as he influenced me, I guess. Most of the time we didn't really set out to do anything in particular. We just started hanging around and whatever happened just usually happened. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. We were just sitting on the couch watching TV the night we were arrested. The pigs busted in, started running all over the house. We tried to hide in the bedroom when the cops first came, but they wouldn't leave. We were in the bedroom, turned the light off. Maybe they'll go away.
I know, and they're open up.
We saw the lights go out.
And he turned them back on and turned them back
No,
on.
that was my sister.
Oh.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that the one knife that we know somebody owns is the Byers knife. We know he owns that knife.
He's got the motive. His son, who he's upset with, his son was the only one mutilated. The other two weren't mutilated. He's got knowledge about the area. He knows when the search is over with. He's big enough that he can carry the boys there and throw them in. He's a jeweler. He's precise enough to have committed that mutilation. All of the pieces fit together with somebody in a different location killing the boys in a different location because there's no mosquito bites on them. So we know that after the boys were killed and during, they weren't outside. They had to be inside because there's no mosquito bites on them. So that means they were carried from a death scene someplace, unconscious, and brought down to the river. And they had to be killed shortly before they brought down there because they all died within a short period of time. So after they were bled to death, after they were bludgeoned and unconscious, somebody had to take those three, take them to the scene, and dump them. In order to do that, you got to be physically strong enough to carry a 50 to 60-year-old unconscious kid who's hogtied. Jason couldn't have done it. In his best day, he couldn't carry a little baby, those little skinny arms of his. So when we look at this whole thing, all the pieces that they tried to put together, none of it fits with Jason, and just about all of it fits towards a person like Byers.
When did you receive that knife?
On the, I believe it was on the 8th. I've got it's hard to make this out, January the 8th, 1994.
All right, and who did you receive this knife from?
I received it from and how did I actually receive it?
Who did you receive the knife from?
I received it from Joe and the people with HBO Productions.
Okay. Bruce and Joe, whatever he is. All right. Yes. Upon receiving that knife, what did you do with it?
I saw what I thought to be some type of substance on the knife, and naturally I did not know what it was. I in turn sent this knife to Genetic Design.
When the knife was received by your firm, did you or your lab run tests on that particular knife?
There was a small amount of what appeared to be blood that was dried or tissue in a crevice on the knife where the knife folds when it locks. The results of the test showed us that there was DNA present on the knife, and that we were able to get a type using a test called HLA-DQ alpha. And Mr. Byers had the same type that was detected from the specimen from the knife.
Okay. And what was the DQ alpha type for Christopher Byers?
It was also the same type.
So the blood on the knife and Christopher Byers' blood and John Mark Byers' blood all had the same type.
Correct.
Go ahead and. Judge, if I can approach the witness.
All right.
If you could take a look at that line. And I will call that, for identification purposes, the John Mark Byers knife. Doctor, did you make a comparison with this knife, E6, and compare that with some of the wounds that you found on Chris Byers?
Yes, I did.
All right. Does that knife appear to be a serrated knife?
Yes, this is a serrated knife.
Do you have an opinion if some of the wounds that you found on Chris Byers were consistent with wounds which would have been caused by that type of serrated knife?
Some of the wounds that have the smaller serrated patterns could have been inflicted with a knife having this type of serration.
How do you think this has gone over so far on the Mark Byers aspect?
Obviously, we thought long and hard about mentioning a father as a possible suspect.
I hate having to do that, but the way the circumstances are, it's just coming out whether we really want it to or not. I mean,
you know,
we had suspicions even before the knife showed up.
Do you think anybody realizes the reason for the 3-day delay in Jesse's trial was waiting on the DNA test to come back on that Byers knife?
I doubt it. And even after the results came back and it showed that it could be Mark's blood as well as Chris's blood, that doesn't alleviate the fact that he said no one had ever cut themselves on the knife. And it shouldn't have had blood on it at all.
Well, do you think the theory, or the argument at least, that it wasn't that the blood was found on the blade, which could be easily wiped off, but it was back in the hinges that you normally wouldn't think, if you were wiping off the blood, you wouldn't think the blood would be inside the hinges, and that's where they found that particular blood?
How do we get that in?
Well,
just ask Gitchell?
Ask Byers. I mean, we could put Byers up on the stand.
I think the jury expects to see him now. Well, they want to see him up there. They want to see what he has to say. Don't you think so?
I think so, yes. Mr. Byers, I need to ask you about Defense Exhibit number E6, this particular folding lock blade Kershaw knife. If I can approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
Take a look at that knife, please. Had that knife ever been used before?
Used for what?
Used for any purpose?
I've had trimmed your toenails with it. I had attempted to trim on some venison that I had.
You attempted to trim on some venison. When was it you attempted to trim on some venison?
One time around the Thanksgiving holidays.
Do you recall being asked on January the 26th, this is on page 3, by Inspector Gitchell, had you ever taken that knife hunting or used it recently? You remember being asked that question by Inspector Gitchell?
Specifically, no, sir. You asked me a lot of questions.
All right. Do you remember giving the answer, no, that knife had not been used at all. It had just been kept up, put in my dresser, and I didn't use it, and the reason why was because of the serrated edges.
Do you recall giving that answer to Inspector Gitchell on the 26th?
No, sir, I don't recall giving him that exact answer. I'm sure his question wouldn't have been asked exactly like your question was.
All right, did Gitchell tell you, let me explain a problem we had, and you need to answer this for me. We have found blood on this knife. Did Gitchell ask you that question?
I don't remember if he said there was or not.
Did you tell Gitchell you had no idea how Chris's blood could be on that knife?
Yes, sir, I would not have any idea. If his blood was on that knife, I would not know how it got there.
Did you have any idea how human blood was on that knife?
Well, yes, I would have an idea. I cut my thumb.
All right. Isn't it true that you never told Inspector Gitchell on January 26th that you ever cut your thumb with that particular knife? Did you?
Yes, sir. It seems like during the course of the day I did tell him that.
Okay. Was that during the taped conversation, or was that after?
I don't remember.
Okay. On the top of page 8, you recall being asked the question, I have no idea how it could have any human blood on it. You recall giving that answer?
Yes, sir.
Then do you recall stating, I don't even remember nicking myself with it, cutting the deer meat or anything? Is that the answer you gave?
Yes, sir.
And is that the truth?
At the time when he was questioning me, I didn't I might not have remembered. We were getting ready to go into a trial.
Did you remember on this date cutting yourself with the venison or not cutting yourself?
The date that Gary questioned?
The date that Gary questioned, yes, sir.
I might not have remembered it at that time when he was questioning me, but I could have remembered it later on in the day and talked to him about it.
Okay. Earlier that afternoon, had you given Chris a whipping?
Approximately around 5:30.
So this was about 5:30, and was this with a belt?
Yes, sir.
And approximately how many times did you hit him with the belt?
I spanked him 2 or 3 times.
And what part of the body did you spank him?
It would have been just on his behind.
Okay. Was he wearing his pants, or did you have him pull his pants down?
No, he had on blue jeans.
Oh, okay.
Myers, the judge back there during that last recess before you were recalled here says that you have a brain tumor and you're being treated. Do you want to talk about that? Is it true? It's been rumored since Corning.
Yes, I have a brain tumor.
And you're being treated?
Yes, I'm being treated.
I need to ask you one question, and I hope you won't get angry. But has this even the suggestion that you may have had something to do with the murders of these boys caused any problems within your family or with any of the other victims' families?
No.
They all know the truth, and no.
Do you have anything to do with these boys' deaths?
No more than you did.
Fogelman said you're buying a new house. Is that right? You're leaving West Memphis?
I didn't say that.
Fogelman this morning.
Yeah, you said that's why you were leaving.
You know, we might try to move.
Out of West Memphis?
Well, somewhere. I mean, you would probably want to move. You know?
Did you say where you're going to move? You want to say?
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Sullivan. Would you want to live in a house that your baby died in less than 3/4 of a mile from it?
I wouldn't, no.
No, okay.
That answers the question. Come on.
You're talking about your whole family, though, right? You're not just talking about you.
You wouldn't move and leave your wife and children somewhere, would you?
Not if we were going to stay together, no.
Okay. I mean, some of the questions you ask are kind of ridiculous. You know, I know you might ask them, but some of them are kind of odd or strange or different, or however you'd like to comment on them. But some of them, it seems like you just use a little common sense and think about what you would do or how you would feel. Some of the questions you fellas would maybe or have to ask.
Well, the only thing is
We have to ask them.
We have to ask them, so we can't quote ourselves. We have to.
I know, but then a lot of times things are printed in the paper that people did not say in the news media. I'm not stating which individual says they got it from a confidential informer. You don't have to turn your confidential informer over when your confidential informer is your imagination.
Well,
you know, there's a lot of things that's printed in the paper that people did not say. But the media has the rights to print what they want to print. You know, victims don't have any rights.
Now that I've heard him talk, I kind of had an idea what he was like before he talked, but after he talked, he wasn't anything like I thought he would be.
How is it?
I see him now as more like a human being than I did before. Now I see him as having personality.
From a defense standpoint, I've never been a defense attorney, but to put him on the witness stand sure seemed to be an awful big gamble. And I can't understand the mindset that puts you in the position where you're willing to take that gamble.
Especially when you follow it up with Mr. Bojangles' accusations. It doesn't make any sense. Because to me, if I were on the jury, it would look like just something desperate. You know, they're going to cast blame on anybody and everybody they can.
Of course, and the defense didn't have the guts to actually ask him, did he do it?
The song that I really can relate to by Metallica is Sanitarium. Because I feel like all those times that I was put in the hospital, I didn't need it. It was just the police, another way for them setting me up when they couldn't send me to prison or something. They're like, well, we'll get them out of our way for a little while by sending them somewhere else. I like Metallica because, well, all hard music like that, because it like gives me an adrenaline rush. Makes me feel more alive.
Now, during the course of talking to Mr. Eccles, did you ask him who did he think did it and why?
In one area, he says he had an opinion for who could have done the murders as being someone sick and that it was some type of thrill kill. He also stated that the penis was a symbol of power in his religion known as Wicca. He also stated that the number 3 has a sacred number in the belief.
And did he tell you anything about demonic forces?
Yes, sir. He said that all people have a demonic force in them and that a person would have no control over that demonic force.
Mr. Eccles was not the only person that told you that the kids probably died of mutilation, was he?
No, sir.
And when Mr. Eccles, you asked him something to the effect of what type of books did he enjoy reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and he told you, I think it was Anton Levy and Stephen King?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in your opinion, is there anything unusual about those being the type of books that Mr. Eccles likes to read?
Anton LaVey is a book of satanic rules and involvement. Stephen King seems to be horror movies, horror books. And if you're asking if I felt that was strange, yes, sir, I did.
All right.
Now, let me refer you back to your statement that you gave Officer Ridge. Did you tell him in that statement that you had been a member of a white witch group for 5 years?
No.
Okay.
I've never been a member of any group.
And so if he put that in his report, you're saying that's inaccurate?
Yes, I am.
He made that up?
Yes, I am.
On question number 9, how do you think the person feels that did this? The answer was probably makes them feel good, gives them power. Now, I guess Officer Ridge said that too.
No, I use common sense on that.
Okay.
If someone was doing it, then they must have wanted to. And if they were doing something they wanted to, it must have made them happy. I don't think they were doing it because someone forced them to or because they didn't want to.
So in your mind, the person that killed these 3 kids, it's common sense that killing 3 8-year-olds would make you feel good.
Whoever did it, it must have.
Did you also tell him that each person had a demonic side to them?
I believe every person has a good side and a bad side, yes.
Well, were those your words when you referred, when he's got written down here, he stated that there was no control of the demonic portion of people?
He asked me, did I think there were some people that could not control that side? I said, yes, I guess there is.
It also states that Damien stated that the younger the victim would be more innocent, and in turn more power would be given the person doing the killing.
Right.
Okay. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay, those are your words.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pick that up when you were studying to be a Catholic?
No. I saw that on several movies, books.
Question number 11, when he asked you, how do you think they died? Its answer is mutilation, cut up all 3, heard they were in the water drowning, cut up one more than the others. Is that, again, what Officer Ridge said and you just agreed?
No, I had saw that on TV, newspapers, people talking.
And you knew it about the drowning, correct?
I knew they were in the water. I didn't know that they drowned.
knew that one was cut up more than the others?
He asked me, was it possible? He said, do you think one was hurt worse than the others? I said,
Oh.
yeah, I guess.
So again, that particular area is one of those things where Officer Ridge told you, and that wasn't your response. You just responded about the drowning and mutilation.
If he didn't get the answer he liked, he would go back and try to get me to say something else.
And it's your testimony specifically that you aren't the one who said one was cut up more than the other.
No,
that
I
it was
didn't.
Officer Ridge who said that.
I agreed with him when he said that.
Okay. And if he says something different, he'd be lying about it, right? You're the one telling the truth.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Damien, we're getting close to the end now. How do you feel so far?
I feel good so far. So far, to me, it looks like we've got it beat.
What do you think the worst thing for us right now has been? In the 3 weeks we've been over here, what has hurt the most?
I only know of two things that really hurt. That one kid getting up there for Jason.
Yeah.
And those girls.
The Thursday's newspaper, which addressed you testifying on Wednesday, was real good. It talked about that you did well. But Friday's, regarding your Thursday testimony, wasn't as good. What do you think?
I think they did real good the first day. The second day, it didn't look as good because Davis kept trying to trip me up or something.
There was one point in there, though, where he asked you, he says, it looks like you're just changing your story to fit whatever comes up. And you said, yeah.
I was just like halfway listening to him. After I was real nervous when I first got up there, enough to keep my attention focused and everything. But after I was up there a few minutes, just started daydreaming.
Daydream. Maybe they'll only halfway kill you when they convict you.
Halfway?
Yeah.
How they do that?
I don't know. Maybe they'll start daydreaming and forget what they're doing.
Anything wrong with wearing black in and of itself? No. Anything wrong with the heavy metal stuff in and of itself? No. The Book of Shadows, anything wrong with that in and of itself? No. But when you look at it together and you begin to see inside Damien Echols, you see inside that person, and you look inside there and there's not a soul in there.
My client is a teenager, and we certainly didn't hide that fact from you. And the fact that my client did some writings, take these back. Go back and read them. Go read all these. But this, in and of itself, is no evidence of murder. And even if you add in all the other things, quote, trappings of occultism, according to Dr. Griffiths, that has nothing to do with this case whatsoever.
Is it a coincidence this knife is found in the lake, hidden behind Jason Baldwin's house? There are marks on Christopher Byers where you've got like a dash where it's a cut, an open space, a cut, and an open space. And if you take this knife and do that, you can see it leaves a cut and an open space, cut and an open space. Now, if you take this knife, Defense Exhibit 6, and even with the slightest pressure, it makes a straight line.
Crime scene. It doesn't fit for a kid to bleed to death
and not leave a drop behind. For all the other injuries to their faces, these other injuries are going to bleed too. And there's not a drop of blood? Not a drop of blood? Look at history. Look at hundreds of years of religious history. There have been hundreds of people killed in the name of religion. It is a motivating force. It gives people who want to do evil, want to commit murders, a reason to do what they're doing. Satanic panic. Yeah, that's a scary thing. But it's a scarier thing to convict someone with no evidence. If you can't figure it out, if it doesn't make sense, let's call it a cult killing and find somebody weird. Find somebody who wears black. If they left one thing go by the wayside, is that there's nothing that links Jason to these activities. Not one witness says that's what he does. That's his beliefs. We don't have a writing, not a drawing, not a picture, not a person, nothing links him to it. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to them because he's sitting over there with Damien. They want you to convict him. Guilt by association is a horrible thing.
Damien, do you think he looks like you?
I don't know. Not really. I think he's got Dominique's ears.
Can you change his diapers, David? So do you think you'll be spending more time with your child, Damien?
Come on, Damien, it's time.
There's nothing in there but a little old room with a window.
So what's his first words gonna be? Not guilty?
His first words would be capital murder.
What's it feel like to go through a month-long trial accused of something you didn't do?
Horrible.
Are you nervous now?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing we can do right now but sit around and wait, but you got anything you want to ask me?
Where do we go when the jury comes back out and says I'm not guilty?
Well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go?
Disneyland, maybe?
Would you? Would you like to go to Disneyland? Have you ever been anywhere have you ever been on a trip at all?
Heber Springs.
Heber Springs.
Well, I tell you what, my man, it'd be a joy to take you. Would you like to go? You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Do you understand now why we didn't want you to testify?
Yeah.
And you see how it hurt Damien? I think it did. And you see how they talked about his witnesses?
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have anything to talk about us. They didn't have anything to talk about because we didn't give them a chance. And, oh man, it's heavy. Do you think that this will change at all? How you choose your friends?
Yeah.
What do you think this would do? What do you think this is going to do to you and Damien, you and your friendship with Damien?
Stop it, I guess. Just,
Would you stop being his friend?
I wouldn't be his enemy, but after this, probably wouldn't be around or that.
You heard what was said about him. Do you think you could have done it?
About what they said?
Yeah, do you think he could have? Do you think Damien could have killed those little boys?
They made it seem like he did.
What do you think?
I don't know.
If you were on that jury, would you have a hard time letting him go? Based on what you heard?
Yeah.
I would too. You let yourself go.
Yeah. If I was up there, I'd let my son go definitely.
That's the things I wanted to hear. Because you know you didn't do it, don't you?
Yeah.
Did Paul surprise you on his closing?
I think Paul should have left out the guilt by association part.
He came down hard on that, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea he was going to do that?
Mm-hmm. I thought it'd be smart enough to stay away from him.
Hurt your feelings?
I wanted to strangle him.
Were you watching the jury?
Mm-hmm.
How do you pick it?
With my finger? No. Now I think it was probably about 60-40. 44 is 60 against us.
If you get out of here, you going to buy a beer?
The whiskey. No beer.
And how about the Bojangles chicken?
Want to get a cigar, cut it open and dump all the tobacco out, fill it up with marijuana, smoke the whole thing.
I mean, we got to get you out of here. You got to go to work where you can pay my bill.
I'm gonna get a job at a gas station or something. Change my name to Bob Smith.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the bailiffs informed me that you've arrived at verdicts. If you have, pass them to the bailiff, please, or the sheriff. The first verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find Damian Eccles guilty of capital murder in the death of Stevie Branch. We, the jury, find Damian Eccles guilty of capital murder in the death of Chris Byers. We, the jury, find Damian Eccles guilty of capital murder in the death of Michael Moore. We, the jury, find Jason Baldwin guilty of capital murder in the death of Chris Byers. We, the jury, find Jason Baldwin guilty of capital murder in the death of Stevie Branch. We, the jury, find Jason Baldwin guilty of capital murder in the death of Michael Moore. All of the verdicts are signed by the foreman. Ladies and gentlemen, it's necessary at this time that the court hold the jury as to all 6 verdicts. So when your name is called, if these 6 verdicts represent your individual verdict, then answer yes as your name is called. Juror number 1.
Yes. Juror number 2.
Yes.
Juror number 3.
Yes.
The prosecution didn't have any evidence, but they don't care. Just because somebody was black and had different beliefs, they're going to convict them of something. Poor parents. Yeah, I'm sorry for them, but I ain't sorry. I'm sorry for the kids. I don't give a damn about the parents, but I'm sorry for the kids. I ain't even sorry for them. I'm sorry for anybody. There's no reason to kill 3 more boys that didn't do a damn thing. I was a witch. Talk about a spell on somebody? Boy, I'd put a good one on. I guess Gitchell goes out with big bangs, and you know he's fucking gonna retire. He already said he was gonna retire. Now he's probably gonna run for office. I got an office for him. Mayor of Hell. As far as I'm concerned, West Memphis can go to hell. West Memphis is hell.
I have put my 20 years in, and hopefully this is the last case I'll have of this magnitude. Hopefully it's my last case. And I'm leaving on a high note, so there's no better way to leave than your head up high and proud.
Well, no, I don't. I'm not surprised. That's what you're asking. You know, I told you earlier I thought the evidence was more than sufficient to make those findings.
They won't kill no more babies. No more babies will they kill.
Let's go.
Sure, but lost children right behind you.
The black one or blue or blue? Blue, don't? Yes. All right.
You don't get out. I know. You don't get out. I know.
Do it. Come on, Dave. How you feeling now, Dave? Did you do it,
We know you're innocent, Jason.
I knew from when I was real small that people were going to know who I was. I always had that feeling. But I just never knew how they were going to learn. And I kind of enjoy it because now, even after I die, people are going to remember me forever. They're going to talk about me for years. People in West Memphis will tell their kids' stories. It'll be like, sort of like I'm the West Memphis boogeyman. Little kids will be looking under their bed before they go to bed. Damien might be under there.
unlike other, less cunning predators,